My finances are quite literally under attack from every single angle, and I'm assuming that if you're watching this video, most of you are probably experiencing similar things due to the fact that these are economic factors that we just can't control. Even though I'm somebody who's really strategic with my finances, I'm finding that there's just a lot less money to go towards financial goals like saving and investing, and a lot more money is having to go to just general living. So let's have a chat about some of these economic factors that are hitting our finances, and then at the end I'll talk about a few things that we can try to do to mitigate these issues. The first point is taxes, good old taxes. Since 2021 in the UK, our personal tax thresholds, personal tax allowances have been frozen. And the worst part is we're not at the end. They're budgeted to be frozen until 2028. So essentially this just means as our personal tax thresholds are frozen and they're not increasing, so the amount that we can earn before we pay tax is not increasing, we are just losing money because it's not going up in line with inflation as it usually does. We are just staying the same while the cost of everything goes up. According to the OBR, the 6-year freeze that we have in place in the personal allowance takes its real value in 2027 to 2028 back to its 2013/14 level. No wonder why, even though so many people are making more money than they ever have, they're not seeing a real impact in how they can live, essentially. So the buzz phrase, cost of living crisis, but it is so very real. Because of that pesky little thing called inflation, we are all experiencing everything going up in price. So usually inflation sits around that 2 to 3% mark per year. That's where it should sit. So everything should go up by about 2 or 3%. Our salaries, the cost of services, the cost of goods, everything goes up kind of together, and therefore everything stays somewhat balanced. And if you're fortunate enough to get more than like a 2 or 3% pay rise, you will actually feel like you're better off financially because inflation sits at that 2 to 3% mark. But in recent years in the UK, inflation was above 9% in 2022 over the year, and above 7% in 2023. So you can see how it's so hugely different to where we should be, which is why the Bank of England are raising their interest rates, but that's not what this video is about. But yeah, we can see that inflation has been a huge problem in recent years. So one thing that I love about budgeting monthly is that I can look across the years to see how things have changed month to month. So if I look at things now in comparison to where they were 4 years ago, it's quite stark and just depressing to look at, but I find it really helpful to just see how much things have really actually gone up in price. So just for some real numbers, our mortgage has gone up by 45% over the past 4 years. Our utilities have had a 95% increase. Our monthly grocery bill has had a 100% increase, and our broadband, a bit random, has had a 129% increase. So as you can see, all of these things have had such a significant shift upwards in comparison to what they should have if they were staying in line with, you know, the normal annual inflation increase. The third thing is wage stagnation. So according to the ONS, real wages, that is a tongue twister, have gone up by an average of 33% each decade between 1970 and 2007. So that's when things were, you know, fairly normal, I guess. Then in 2008, the global financial crash happened, as you probably recall. And then after that, it seems like things went downhill. So as of 2023, our real wages are back to the levels of 2005. So that means the amount that the average person is earning is like we were back in 2005, but we're in 2023 with the cost of living, which shows you why people's finances are so pinched and why things feel so expensive and why our money just doesn't seem to go as far as it did before. So we're almost 2 decades behind where we should be if we wanted to actually keep up with the cost of living. And the fourth thing are mortgage rates, and oh boy, is this painful. Now, some people will say, you know, mortgage rates were clearly a couple of years ago at all-time lows. There was no way it could have stayed like that. And I do agree that, you know, they weren't normal, they were historically low. However, it's just bad timing, I guess, because with this mortgage rate increase, mortgage rate hikes, and the insane inflation, which has obviously impacted the cost of living, it's just a lot for households across the UK and probably across the globe to take on all at once. So we have been homeowners for 5 years now. So at the beginning of 2020, we got on the property ladder and we fixed for 2 years with an interest rate of 2.69%. We then 2 years later fixed again, and it was a reduced interest rate of 2.07%, which was great. And then 2 years after that, which obviously in hindsight, wish we did it for 5, but we done it for another 2, it went up to 4.64%. So needless to say, you know, this doubling or more than doubling of our interest rate definitely has had an impact on household finances, and yeah, just makes saving and investing that much harder. I feel like it's quite easy to see why some people have to make drastic decisions like downsizing or moving to a cheaper area, or just selling their house and having to rent, because it's just, yeah, it's a lot. So what are some of the things that we can do to kind of lessen the burden or lessen the blow of all of this? There's not much, but there are a few things. So taxes. The thing that we can do to be a little less brutalized by these taxes is to put into our pensions. And this is especially important for those who pay 40% or 45% tax. So if you are a higher rate taxpayer or you're an additional rate taxpayer, this pays big for you. Anything that you make over like 50,270, I don't actually know the exact number, but I think it's around there. Anything you make over that is taxed at 40%, and then once you reach £125,000, anything you make over that is taxed at 45%. But if you put it in your pension, then, you know, or put as much as you can in your pension as possible, then that portion of income is not taxed at 40% or 45%. So this is one of the most tax efficient things that you can do, and I think it's just, you know, it's going to pay off in the long run because it's a bigger pension pot size for your future you, but also you pay less tax now. With the cost of living, it really pays to shop around. Use comparison websites to make sure you're getting the best deals on things like energy, on broadband, and be strategic when it comes to like phone plans. Sometimes we get sucked into buying a new phone when we don't need one, and it's just an extra expense that we don't need. Subscriptions, we're just oversubscribed to too many things. Sometimes you have to take a step back and look and think, do I need all of these subscriptions? And one of my new favourite things is I've been doing cashback for many, many years, mainly Top Cashback, and I have a video about that. But one of the newer things that I've been doing in the past 6 months is an app called Cheddar, specifically for grocery shopping. So like Tesco's, a lot of times I get 4% back. Waitrose, I think it's 6% back. It varies, but for things, you know, groceries, I have to buy anyway. Any cashback that I get on that feels like such a win. So there's little things you can do to kind of get some money back in terms of cost of living, or just to make sure that you're getting the best deal possible. Wage stagnation, I feel like, is one of those weird things where, you know, what can you really do? If you're in a job and you can't get a raise, like, what can you do? You can maybe ask, you can maybe give proof of, you know, how hard you've been working, how much additional revenue you're bringing into the company, and maybe why you feel like you should get a raise. Or in most cases, people see the biggest increases when they job hop. They leave where they are and go to another place. That's not something I personally have experience with, because right now in my life, it doesn't feel like the right timing to do that with back-to-back maternity leaves and now 2 very young children. But I know that this is something that pays off big time. And lastly, mortgage rates. It's really important to stress test your finances to see, before you buy a home really, to see what you can afford, what you can actually afford. So one of the ways that you can stress test your finances is to use a mortgage repayment calculator. Google it, there's loads online, and have a look to see if interest rates were to go up, maybe to 6% for instance, could you afford to make those mortgage payments? Sometimes it's quite brutal to look at the numbers and you think, wow, that is way more than I, can afford, or way more than I pictured. And if that's the case, then maybe what you can afford to buy in a home is a bit less. But I think it's really good to do this before you even get on the property ladder, because you know that if that time comes around when mortgage rates do go up, even though it's not nice to have to pay extra towards your mortgage on a monthly basis, you know that you can afford to do it. You know that you're not going to lose your home. And honestly, that sense of peace, knowing that you can actually make it work, is a big thing. So those are some of the things that you can do, but I'm sure there are other things that I just haven't thought of. So if you've done anything else that you find helpful, then please do write it down below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching today's video and supporting, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video real soon.